Somerset Patriots pitching coach. So thank you so much for coming on, and congrats on the first half championship.
Yeah, no, thank you. It was definitely a good first half, and obviously looking forward to what's to come in the second half and then into the playoffs.
We're going to ask you about your career path and how you ended up getting a job with the Patriots. I know last year you were with the Tarpons.
Yeah, no, was a college coach for 12 years, and so kind of started my career that way, and got to know Sam Breen a little bit. I actually worked in college with Joe Migliaccio, our hitting coordinator, and so he introduced me to Sam Breen and Desi Druschel, and so had a few conversations with him, and one thing kind of led to another, and ended up joining the Yankees, and spent last season with the Tarpons, and then was fortunate enough once the Tarpon season ended, went up for the last 2.5, 3 weeks to AAA and was a bullpen coach in Scranton there, and then this year was assigned to the Patriots.
So with that, what led you to specialize in pitching? What made you want to be a pitching coach?
I actually started my career as a hitting coach. I was a catcher, so I started my career as a hitting coach, and really just kind of started to learn more about some of the way that pitching was going, some of the newer age stuff with pitching, and being a former catcher, obviously handling pitchers on a daily basis was something I was comfortable with, both like game planning and things like that. So kind of just about halfway through my college time went more towards the pitching coach route, and like I said, some of the newer age stuff of pitching was really interesting to me, and kind of just the transformation of where the game goes, but also having a steady background in game planning, and just some people might call it old school baseball, but just some of the ways of pitching before the added technology, and so being able to blend those two together, I thought would be a strength of mine.
That's amazing. I didn't know you were a catcher. So you played that position in college?
Correct. Yep. I was a catcher in college, and then right after college, obviously got straight into coaching.
I mean, it makes total sense. Naturally, as a catcher, it's like you're in the game, you know everything that's going on in the game, the pitchers. So congrats to you. I'm happy for you. With that, what is it like working in the Yankees organization?
It's the best. Obviously, grew up a fan my whole life, and so that was pretty unique being from Alabama and being a Yankees fan. You're a long way away from New York, but grew up a huge Derek Jeter fan, and so wanted to, kind of be like him growing up, and so him and Jorge Posada were kind of my two favorites, and so just having that background and getting to kind of live a dream that I wanted to do, which was be a part of this organization, and so when the opportunity presented itself, it was kind of like a dream come true.
That's awesome. So I assume you caught Herman's no-hitter.
Yeah, no, perfect game. So yeah,
perfect game.
Yeah. Well, it was both. So but yeah, the pretty special for him. Gotten to spend a little bit of time with him the last 2 years, spring training, rehab stints, things like that. So really special for him, and obviously only the 24th person in history to do it. How hard it is to do. So definitely excited, for him to have that achievement.
That's awesome. Did it bring back memories for you on the Somerset's no-hitter last year?
Watching from afar and hearing the stories, that's kind of a running joke. That game will live in Somerset history forever. So pretty special. Obviously, Randy and Carson both, working with those guys, in spring training, things like that. And then obviously having Austin here who caught that game. And, Casa did a great job last year as the pitching coach here. And so was, pretty special day. And obviously to do that on a championship day makes it even more special.
You brought up Matt Blake. Did you get a chance to work with him in spring training or speak with him? What is your relationship like with Matt Blake?
Yeah, no, actually texted with him yesterday morning, whenever after the perfect game, just congratulate him as well. And so him and Desi spent a little bit of time with both of those guys right before big league spring training started. And, obviously been in communication with both of those guys pretty regularly with, some of the rehab guys that have already come through, Somerset most recently. We had Rodon for a whole week. So, kind of giving them feedback, talking to them about some of the things that we see, but kind of more just trying to stay on schedule, whatever they have planned. So I wouldn't say we communicate regularly, but definitely fairly often.
That's good. He's a great coach.
Yeah, definitely. Those guys are really good at their job for sure.
So with that, like you guys have been getting a lot of major league rehabbers and everything. So do you guys deal with the MLB guys any differently when you see them come in? Like, do you just try to let them stick to what they're used to, or like do you advise them on anything?
A lot of those times, those guys have such a structured routine already that a lot of it's just kind of helping them be able to stick with that routine. There may be things here or there that pop up that will help them with, but for the most part, it's pretty much just providing them a platform to kind of get back into game feel and competition mode that is hard to get sometimes when you practice. But when things arise like a rain delay in the middle of a game, like it was the other day, with Rodon, that makes things a little more challenging. So you have to, help guide through that process. And it was, for the most part, though, I would say those guys, like I said, have such a structured routine already that for us, it's kind of just helping them, keep that on track.
So sticking with Rodon, what did you see? You think he's ready for the big show soon?
I definitely think he's getting close. I think this last rehab start will be good for him. You can see the velocities kind of starting to continue to climb. Know he feels good. I know he's ready in his mind to get back out there. So definitely looking forward to hopefully another good outing. I believe it's going to be Hudson Valley, but I'm not sure. I've been out of the loop a little bit. But another good outing this weekend, and then waiting for his debut in the Bronx.
So one pitcher that's been standing out, especially since you guys traded for him last year. I know you weren't with him last year, but what have you been doing with Clayton Beeter to enhance his development? And now we see him up at AAA, and he's looking like one of the best pitchers in the Yankee system.
Yeah, Clayton's a workhorse, man. That guy is maybe the best competitor that I've ever coached. When it comes time to cutting the lights on and going out there and competing every 5 or 6 days whenever his time rolls around. But I think the biggest thing for him is just the consistency. A lot of the things he's done is just been a pretty consistent guy day in and day out. For us, I mean, we obviously worked on increasing some changeup usage. That was kind of a new pitch this year for him that he didn't really throw much last year, didn't really throw at the Dodgers at all. Being a starter, we wanted to kind of introduce that changeup a little bit more. And then really more than that, just is trying to help him find the correct routine for him as a starter. I think being a reliever or being a short, starter type guy, the routine looks a little bit different. And kind of managing the game, managing your week after a game, those type of things are kind of some of the stuff we worked on. But other than that, man, he's so dialed in to what he needs to do, and some of the things that make him who he is. And I think that's what we want to keep pushing forward.
Another pitcher that stood out, like Beeter, is Warren. Do you see Warren being called up to the majors as well, or to?
Yeah, no, I think I think Will is maybe has the best stuff of anybody I've ever worked with. I think he, when you look at just overall raw stuff, I mean, he definitely has it. As far as getting caught up, like obviously that's out of my control. I don't want to play GM here. We got cash to do that. So, I think whenever they're ready for him, he continues to get better. Had another good start last night in AAA. Another 5 shutout, I believe is what it was. So, I think you're just going to continue to see him get better, as things move on. And I think it's hard to think about, but also remembering, and he's just in his second professional baseball season, and so to kind of be where he is at this point in that young of a professional career speaks volumes of who he is. And, the sky's the limit for him, and definitely looking forward to what's to come.
Actually, it's funny you mentioned that, because my follow-up question to you was going to be, do you have any influence on the players, on these pitchers being called up? Do you have any influence at all?
I mean, people definitely ask my opinion, as far as how they're progressing and, things like that. As far as influence on making those decisions, outside of that, like I said, I try more importantly just to focus on what we can control here. And, there's other things that also are on the table that can influence those decisions as well, roster managements and things like that. So sometimes a player can do everything he can, and it's just not the right time right this second. So, I really just try to focus on the guys and just focus where your feet are, and right now, if you're in Somerset, just focus on getting better every day here. And when your time comes, you'll be ready, and can't look, down the road and miss kind of today right here in front of us.
Amen.
So I know you have a good relationship with Fitz, and you faced him when you were coaching at college too, and he's really been locked in lately. He had another good outing last night. He had like 6 quality starts in a row before that. So what's something that's clicked with him as he's hit this hot stretch?
I think it's kind of a similar deal to what he went through last year. It's kind of, getting a little bit of feel for the level, continuing to work on some different things. I think one of the biggest things is probably, a little bit different slider, addition of a newer slider. The last couple of outings, probably last 4 or 5 outings, which has, helped. And then the velocity continues to go up, definitely throwing a little bit harder now. Been up as high as 97 in the last couple of outings, and kind of average velo right around 94. So definitely seeing some improvements there. And, I think it's just kind of learning from, some of the failure or some of the things that maybe didn't go his way early in the year. And, I think that's what makes him special, is just the ability to adapt and continue to get better. And, we saw that last year, and, had to learn professional baseball and some things with that. And just kind of continue to get better until the very end of the year. The last 5 starts in Hudson Valley were, off the charts. And then, kind of just, you see that going on again this year. And, one thing about Richard is, he's going to throw strikes. Like that's a given. He walked 2 last night, and we were joking like that was a lot. Like, that was a lot for me. And so, just for him, he's going to throw strikes. So, he's going to be in the zone and give you a chance. And so now it's just like, all right, like how do we continue to develop his pitch package a little bit more? And I think he's doing that. And I think you're seeing the results that are coming from it.
Yeah, we always know he had the talent. He was the top pitching prospect coming into the season, and he hasn't done much to change that. Things are looking good for him. What do you think his ceiling could be at the next level?
Yeah, I definitely think he, has a chance to continue to be a starter as we move forward. I mean, you're starting to see the development of the changeup has continued to come on, which is something we worked on this offseason, and something he wanted to get better at. Still has the cutter along with the fastball and slider. So 4 solid pitches here. Like I said, the biggest thing, he's going to throw strikes. And so when you think about a starter, like having fastball command, being able to throw strikes is a big piece to that. So, definitely looking forward to, hopefully him continuing into a starting rotation, one day in the Bronx.
We love Yulie, Tyrone here at Dugout. So we want, and I know that you worked with the Tampa Tarpons. Wanted to ask, what did you see working with Tyrone last year, and what are your thoughts on his development?
Well, I can say, first off, just watching from afar this year, it's just continued to get better, which is a good thing. I think the biggest thing with Tyrone is just with him, it's clearly he has all the physical attributes that are needed. High velocity fastball, 2-seam fastball now as well to go along with it. Always had a really good changeup. Much improved slider this year, which is something we worked on this offseason. So, I think for him, it's just kind of continuing to get those reps. And, I think sometimes in his like physical stature, we forget that, he's still 20, 21 years old, still a young guy. And so sometimes I think the expectations get a little bit ahead because you just see this big physical
Yes.
presence out there on the mound. It's like you forget how young he really is, and so I think a lot of those guys, you still last year especially, you kind of still saw some of the lingering effects of the non-season in 2020 with the COVID year, and so last year was kind of like one of the first years back at it fully again for them all the time, like a full normal spring training and everything else. So I just think for him it's just continuing to work on his development and just continuing to mature as a pitcher, which like I said, it looks like he's doing, and definitely looking forward to what's to come for Yulie.
Yeah. So speaking of some challenges, what do you do like when the guy doesn't have it on the mounds and they don't have like their good stuff, like the deliveries off or something in game? Like, how do you adjust? Like, what goes into those mound visits?
I think sometimes it's just trying to simplify stuff for them. Sometimes I think when you, especially during a mound visit, like you get guys that things just start going really fast for them out there sometimes. And so sometimes we just want to just try to slow down. And usually we have something that we know are kind of like their foundational things with each guy. And so we just really in mound visits, especially, or adjustments in game, it's just try to get back to what makes you who you are, your foundational things, and then try to get back to the dugout, regroup, and then we can, go again. So I think a lot of times it's just trying to slow the game down for them because sometimes the game gets going a little bit fast. And all these guys are so talented that, usually their foundational strengths are good enough. And so, we just sometimes get away from those. And that's where my job is to help get them back towards that.
Do you approach the minor league pitchers different than, say, your Rodon that's rehabbing? You said all basically you're just providing the platform so they can, get back to their normal self. So do you approach those pitchers differently than you normally would?
I think the minor league guys, a lot of them are still trying to develop that routine that I was talking about with Rodon or Sevi or those guys that come in. They're trying to still develop that routine, still develop how they want to pitch, what's going to be the most successful way for them to pitch, and through conversations you can tell the difference between some of those guys. And obviously we have some guys here that already have some of that figured out that just might be working on something different. Maybe it's adding a pitch or something else. So not everybody's the same. I think that's probably the best thing and the most challenging thing with my job is obviously there's a lot of different 14 or 15 different personalities and strengths and things like that in the in the bullpen or in the dugout. And so I think just managing each guy and understanding that each guy kind of has things that make him special or things that he's working on. And so I think handling each guy individually is probably the way I kind of go about it.
Right, that makes some good sense. And speaking of that, there is so much movement in the system. How challenging is it getting all these different guys? Like you're sending guys up, guys are coming in, guys are getting injured. You probably have like 20 plus different pitchers a year you got to work with, like even in the starting rotation. It definitely has to be a challenge. I'm curious like how you navigate through that.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is, I've said this anytime I've ever talked to somebody, as far as from a leadership standpoint, Sam Breen is as good as it gets, and that's, I'm very vocal about that. I think we have, from a pitching director standpoint, we have the best in the business, and in my mind, it's probably not even close. And so I think he helps obviously tremendously with that, has a great pulse on kind of what's happening throughout the system. But I think also just the communication we as coaches have with each other. So, if a guy's going up to AAA, Graham and I or Graham Johnson, our AAA coach, we're going to talk and kind of fill each other in. So that way there's not a break for the players. They can walk right in from day one and Graham knows exactly what they've been doing. And it's almost like they never left. And then same thing if, Preston Claiborne, our high A coach, is sending me someone and, same thing there. And, I think just that communication back and forth is what makes this system kind of flow the way it does. And, I think we do a good job of, documenting things and trying to provide that information for people. And, the goal of this whole thing is to help push the player forward, and so as we as pitching coaches, our job is when that transition happens is to try to make it a seamless, flawless transition. And, I think that communication with each other is what makes that happen.
It's really impressive, honestly. Like, these guys, you guys keep churning in. So with that, how has the staff become so elite with the Somerset Patriots? I know you weren't there last year, but this year you guys are one of the better pitching teams again. You have so many top prospects there. It seems like whoever you give the ball to has a good chance of making things happen out in the mound.
Yeah, no, we've done well. Obviously had a good first half, and that's just something we can continue to build on. But is looking at some of the different things in the Eastern League, as far as some of the stats and some of that from the first half, and really improved as the first half went along, which is our goal. We want to get a little better each day, and I tell the guys all the time, like, your goal is not to be a good AA pitcher. Your goal is, to be an all-star, above average big leaguer. That's what we're pushing towards. So, I think just continuing to understand the process and the daily work, and not getting satisfied with, one good outing or two good outings, but, ultimately we have a much bigger goal than just being good in Somerset. And if you're doing that, then you'll be good here. And, and so we want to continue to push that forward. And, I think what makes this org special and what makes these guys special, especially, is just the daily work, day in and day out. And we talk about it as a staff all the time. Like, the game is kind of just like the platform to go perform, but the work happens a lot of times before the game or in between starts or things like that. That's where the actual work and practice is happening. And so, we kind of go at that every day. Like, we have an opportunity to work on something before we ever get to play. And if you pitch that night, then it's just your opportunity to go perform. And whether it's good or bad, we're going to come back and we got the same thing coming again. And so I think it's just focusing on the daily process is kind of what drives that forward.
Good stuff. Somerset, I mean, they're stacked, even AAA, they're stacked with amazing catchers this season. I mean, anywhere you turn, you have great catchers. What goes into the relationship between the pitcher and the catcher and understanding each other and being on the same page for a game?
Yeah, no, it's huge, as you said, and we're really blessed, with the amount of catching talent that we have in this organization is pretty phenomenal. And so I think the biggest thing with that for us is, obviously there's meetings that happen with pitcher and catcher together, all the time. But then also, like, what people don't see, like I said, in that practice time is our catchers spend an enormous amount of time that isn't even probably mandated, but for them it's to try to develop relationships with pitchers. And
Wow.
so during that working session, at that time before games start, like, they catch every single, bullpen, and we do other mound sessions with relievers, and they catch all of them, and so I think the amount of work they put in to try to learn these guys, and it works both ways. Also, pitchers communicating with the catchers exactly what they want and how they want things to go. And so, I actually had a conversation with our catchers last night. Again, like, sometimes I don't think they hear it enough how thankful we are for them, because the amount of time they do put in and give us is huge. And it makes a big difference whenever, we're talking about working through things, and they're right there in the middle of it. So they know exactly what we're working on too.
That's huge.
What do you think about Austin Wells' work behind the plate?
I think Austin continues to get better, each time he goes out there. I know obviously I'm not the catching guy, but, I'm around Bossy pretty regular. And so I can hear some of their conversations, and, just continues to get better as a receiver, he's throwing at a career low right now in pop times and things like that. And anybody that's ever talked to Austin knows, like, from a leadership standpoint, like, he just, every leadership just oozes out of him. He's just the ultimate leader. And so from that standpoint behind the plate, like, that's exactly what you want, that physical presence back there that people are going to listen to and kind of help drive forward what we're wanting to do. So, and then obviously the bat continues to play. I mean, he can really, really hit. And again, some of that's not my expertise, so I'm not going to go down that route, but I'll tell you this, I'm glad he's on our team, if that helped.
We're excited for his future, absolutely, like, and his development. What's it like working with Raul? I know it's his first year coaching the team. What's your experience been with him?
Raul's been great. I think the biggest thing with Raul is, he really, really cares, and so you can see that right away. He really cares about the players. He really cares about their development. He's been steady day in and day out as a manager. I think he would tell you that as the season's going on, like, he's gotten used to managing again. He was a defensive coach there for a while in between being a manager. So I think as the season's going on, he's kind of gotten back used to being a manager again. And, he's done a phenomenal job communicating, and, obviously being bilingual helps us a lot, to be able to kind of manage the whole, and help me tremendously on my Spanish, and working through some of that. So, he's definitely done a good job, and like I said, looking forward to the second half with him.
Awesome.
So is there like a certain pitch you guys are practicing more? Like, do you want all your guys throwing like a certain way? Like, is there a technique or something you guys are enforcing with all your pitchers?
I don't think so. I think it's again pretty individualized. Who needs what. I think we obviously continue to work as a staff to develop the ability to help these guys develop whatever pitch is necessary, and so whether that be with video or whatever else, we're gonna try to continue to build whatever package that guy needs in order to be successful. So, I know a lot of people think like, oh, we're gonna give everybody a slider, or we're gonna give everybody this or that. Like, it's really not like that. It's really more just like individualized as far as who needs what. And sometimes people come in with something that might be different, but it works. And so we're not going to just change something just to make everybody look the same. And, I know there are organizations out there that want everybody to do things the same way. And, I think you can watch in our big league team, like, that's not the case for us. We're going to have guys that do things that they're very good at, and we're going to just try to push that forward and fill the gaps wherever they're needed.
I do want to ask about TJ. Are you concerned, Tommy John surgery, are you concerned with all about these pitchers? I know it's more common nowadays. Are they taking any measures to try and prevent these surgeries?
Yeah. Well, I think first off to know we play a sport that's not a natural motion on the body, right? Like, so every time that we throw, there's a toll that it takes on the body. I'll definitely say there have been measures that have been taken to try to help with certain things, and especially as guys continue to throw harder and do things, there probably needs to continue to be more. And I think we all continue to get a little bit more educated, is probably the best way to say, on how to handle some of these things. And some of them are just impossible to prevent. Like, that's what you have to know in the beginning. Like, there's just some that it's just a freak of nature, and you can hear doctors say like everything was fine, and then there's other situations where there was an overuse or a more of a chronic thing that was going on there. So I think for us, it's just really doing a good job of trying to manage their workload and manage some of the things that they do on a daily basis, and whether that's through strength and conditioning or nutrition or or actively throwing. We try to manage the whole. And I know we have a coordinator, Ben Buck, who has kind of oversaw the workload as far as from a pitching side of things. And I think if you look at some of our injury rates in the minor leagues over the last 2 years, knock on wood, they're definitely trending in the right direction. And I think that's a lot of credit to him. He's put a lot of time into that. And I think you see some of the measures that we've taken have been good, and we're probably a little more conservative with guys, with some pitch counts and things like that than maybe some other orgs that I see. And but at the same time, like, not at an expense of limiting their work. They still get the amount of work and that's needed, and so we still get them to those points. But I think continuing to do that, and then also continuing to educate our players and learn through the biomechanics of what's happening with the body. Sometimes that's for different benefits, but also it's for health measures as well. So as we continue to learn more about that, and some of our biomechanics staff that we have now are just continuing to educate us more and more. And so hopefully we continue to improve. Like obviously being on their field on the field is their biggest attribute to them and to the Yankees. And so, we tell them all the time, like nothing we do is to try to keep you off of the field. Like we want you on the field as much as possible, but we want to do it in the healthiest way possible.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I know Carson Coleman had Tommy John, and that was a big blow to the bullpen. I know Boyle had it in AAA, and I know Yoendrys Gomez is the guy that is interesting to both of us. He talks about managing pitch counts with him, I know, and he had Tommy John in the past too. So, how do you feel about Gomez and a few of the other guys that are like rehabbing off it?
Yeah, no, I think Yogo definitely is a guy that we've been pretty careful with, and I think that's, again, everybody's a little different, and you just kind of learn from guys past and understand kind of where he is, and we're playing it careful, but I think it's definitely in his best interest, and just continuing to build him up. And it's easy to get into a season and rush and lose kind of your foundational principles if you're not careful. And so for us, we have foundational principles that we want to see, and we want to kind of pass each time as we go, and he's doing that. He's exceeding those. But as we kind of get towards the All-Star break, like there's kind of a built-in break here, so we got to be careful with some of that as well. So playing it smart and looking at the season as a whole, is definitely what we've done with Yogo, and he's super talented. Everybody knows that. I mean, there's 5+ pitches in there, and so he's definitely talented. And the biggest thing for him is he continues to feel good after each outing, and so continues to kind of progress through that, which is a positive. And so I know he's getting ready to kind of expand and keep going, and that's definitely coming. And so I definitely think as we look forward, he's going to be an exciting piece later this week, and obviously as we head into the second half of the season after the All-Star break.
I agree. I had a chance to see him. I really like the kid. Wish him the best.
For the starting pitchers and the relievers, like, is there a different way you train them? Like, how do they approach things differently?
Yeah, definitely. Starters are way more routine based, so their week looks the same kind of week after week after week, as long as the games, the schedules don't get interrupted by weather or random off days or things like that. Then it'll pretty much look the same. So they'll have a couple of days of just light throwing. They'll have a bullpen day, which is kind of their heaviest day, in between their start, and that's where majority of their work comes in. And then they'll basically just build up for their next start. And then from a reliever standpoint, it's a little bit less routine based, because the game kind of dictates when they pitch. And, sometimes we have to use 4 relievers in a game, and sometimes we only use 2, or 1. So, it's just really kind of up in the air as far as how that goes. And, I think for them, it's more about trying to find a routine, even though it's not a perfect routine. And so we try to stay on the mound as much as possible and continue to work on our stuff as much as possible. And so while their mound sessions may be a little bit shorter, maybe 5 to 10 pitches, per day in between, whereas a starter may, get in a decent amount more than that. I think for the relievers, it's more about, just finding something each day that we're working on, and trying to just find one thing to practice on that day to get a little better at.
Yeah, it's really fascinating to me how different it is, and like how often relievers pitch opposed to starters. So speaking of that, who's someone that could be flying under the radar maybe that people need to start paying more attention to in the Patriots pitching staff?
I think the biggest thing is, I don't know if Chase Hampton's flying under the radar much anymore, but obviously he just came up to AA and has had two really good starts already. So I don't know if he considers flying under the radar, but maybe he's new. So maybe to some Patriot fans, they don't necessarily know him yet. But, I would say him. We have a couple of guys. We have a bunch of guys in the bullpen, but we have a couple of guys that have kind of just been pretty standout all year. Alex Mauricio has been pretty phenomenal all year, for us so far. And so I think he's definitely somebody that reliever wise that people want to know about. And, I mentioned Lisandro Santos a minute ago. He's been a pretty steady bullpen arm for us, all year in the back end. And then somebody that I guess has kind of come on the scene in the month of June, Zach Houston has been a guy out of the back end that's been striking out almost 50% right now in the month of June. So, I mean, it's crazy strikeout numbers. So that one's been fun to watch. And then obviously, just the bullpen as a whole has been really solid. And I know sometimes those guys down there don't get talked about quite as much because of, prospect status and other things. And, but I definitely think that those guys have kind of continued to get better, day in and day out. And you kind of look back and it's like, wow, like a lot of our success was in the starting rotation, but also a lot of games were won because our bullpen was really, really solid and was able to hold leads and, do different things. And obviously we have an extremely good offense. And so sometimes the bullpen just get forgotten about because we continue to score. But like last night, for instance, you look up and, Fitz gives up 3 runs and then you look up and it's like, oh, well, they didn't score again either. So that helps. And so sometimes those guys get forgotten about until they don't pitch good. And then it like everybody remembers them then. But, I think our bullpen as a whole is almost the forgotten piece, I guess, is a little bit. And, there's definitely some really good arms down there.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of good pitching out of that bullpen in tight games and extra inning, like clutch pitching. Like Tanner Myatt's done a really good job too, and getting out of some big situations. And yeah, a lot of times you see a good start and you look up and all of a sudden they haven't scored. Like, oh, the bullpens are pretty good. Who are these guys that just threw these scoreless innings?
Yeah, exactly. I think I was just looking here at some stats. I mean, Tanner's got 4 saves and Alex has 4 saves. And, like I said, sometimes you can just not even remember that it's like, oh, they pitched some really big innings right there. And, Danny Watson's come up from high A and, knock on wood, hasn't allowed a run, in his 11 innings or so that he's pitched.
Wow.
Edgar Barclay just got here a couple weeks ago and he continues to strike out 4 or 5 in about 2 innings every time he goes out there. So, there's definitely some other arms in there that, maybe hadn't got talked about quite as much yet, but they just continue to put up numbers and do their thing.
I wanted to ask you if there's any like coaching experience or stories, like a funny story that you've experienced with the Patriots.
Well, I think anytime you can get a Richard Fitz dad joke is a funny story. He tends to be the king of dad jokes, and so I think that's probably the biggest laugh is where it comes from. And anything else, I don't know that I have a super funny story. I think it's just a day-to-day thing. You never know what you're going to get. Whether it's a Blas Castano or Lisandro Santos. They both know that I'll say my Spanish is improving, and so I can communicate with them. But they sometimes like to just come up and only speak to me in Spanish as fast as possible and just watch my reaction. So I think you never know what you're going to get day to day. But like I said, those are probably some of the highlights, and as far as from funny stories go. But no, it's been a great year for sure.
That's great. Do you want to coach in the big leagues? Is that like your goal, or do you see yourself coaching in the big leagues?
Yeah, I think so. I was actually talking to my wife about this recently, but I think it's I don't really know what the future holds. I don't know whether it's moving into a coordinator role eventually or coaching on a big league staff somewhere. I've always been in the dugout, I do know that. So as far as coaching, and it's kind of just in my blood, my dad's done it for almost 50 years, now. And so it's just kind of what I know, and that's what I've done. And so I think that's ultimately the goal. Whether that's the next step, I don't know. I think that's probably yet to be determined. And, obviously this is kind of the path that I've taken at this point, and we'll kind of see where things go after this year, and I'll have some conversations with the guys here and kind of see where it takes me.
Well, I gotta say, you're doing some good resume building so far with the Patriots in this first half and everything.
Good stuff. We were excited to hear you're a Yankees fan, and we want to end this. We want to end our interview with some games. I'm sure you've heard of. It's gone viral of pick your Yankees Mount Rushmore. Who would be in your Yankees Mount Rushmore?
That's 4, right? I get 4?
4.
Oh, man, that's going to be tough. Well, Derek Jeter, number 1 for me, for sure. Roger Clemens would have to be 2.
Wow.
Jorge Posada would be 3. And then you can't have a Mount Rushmore without Mo. So Mo would be Rivera would be 4 for me. And I know that's more newer age Yankees than it is older age, but that was kind of the group of guys that I kind of grew up watching. So those
here. Those good answer. I mean, those are your 90s Yankees, the best era in baseball, I gotta say.
Right. Yeah, obviously I know there's extremely great history before, and
yeah,
I think my son would probably be mad I didn't say Babe Ruth in that. I think overall it's just like, man, those are the guys that I remember watching, and which made me a Yankees fan.
Yep.
I gotta love it. So we're gonna play the Or game too. You ready for that one?
All right. I'm not sure I know what it is, but sure, I'm ready for it.
Okay. First one. Go ahead, Sandy.
First one. Would you pitch Andy Pettitte or CC Sabathia?
Oh, is it in the playoffs or in the regular season?
Let's just say you have one game you gotta win, playoffs or postseason. Who are you going with?
Oh, I'm going Andy Pettitte.
Oh.
Okay. All right. Next up, we'll switch to some offense before we go back to pitching. Bernie or Paul O'Neill?
I got to go Bernie Williams.
Okay. Oh, that's a tough one. Come on, Paulie.
Yeah.
All right, let's go back to pitching. David Cone or Ron Guidry?
I'm going to go Guidry on that one.
Okay.
Nice.
And then the last one might be the toughest yet. Jeter or Mo?
I got to go Jeter. That's my guy. That is a tough one, though, for sure.
Yeah. All right. Grayson, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much for accepting our interview, and we learned a lot from your pitching staff and all these guys, and we're just excited. Excited for the next half of your championships, and we wish you a lot of success.
No, absolutely. Thank you guys, and anytime I can share a little light on some of these guys, they're definitely worth it, and working hard to continue to get better. So thank you for all you guys do. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much, and hopefully we can see you out at the ballpark soon, back in Somerset, and we're excited for what's ahead. We really appreciate you hopping on.